really wrestling is the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. You know, when you're a young kid, like you have other ideas, you know, like, oh, I think I want to be a detective, or, you know, like whatever other things you think that might be a cool job when you're younger. But wrestling was always a huge part of my life, and I always wanted to be a wrestler. Growing up in rural Ontario, Canada, you know, I grew up in a town with a population of 80 people. There was the only road that was paved was the main road. There's not a traffic light. The closest McDonald's is 40 minutes away in the bustling metropolis of Chatham, Ontario, population of about 30,000 people. So, I mean, it doesn't seem obtainable, but that never really didn't register with me when I was a little kid. So that's all I ever really wanted to do. So the first day walking in, like knowing it's like the start of this journey, whether it was going to be a good journey or a bad journey, I didn't know about that, but just excited to learn how to do it and experience it. It was just excitement. That was all I was thinking. I've never worked harder in my life than when I was an independent wrestler. I had a regular job. I would work, 40 to 60 hours a week. I ran a wrestling school for like 5 years, and I had a pretty, budding, fledgling, kind of like really good independent wrestling career going, where I was wrestling all over the place, and I was driving to all these shows. And a lot of guys do it now. Nothing has changed, but it's hours and hours of driving, and no money, and you can't afford a hotel, so you sleep in the back of your car. And I never thought ever like, oh man, this is too hard. To be honest, like my independent years are some of my fondest, and I think I'm usually like a pretty optimistic person, and I believe in change is the only thing that's for certain in life. And I knew that it wouldn't always be that way. Maybe it would change and I would find a different thing. But I knew, like from the first day being in a wrestling ring, like the first day of class, I was just as good or better than anybody there. Like I've never experienced that in anything in my life, where I knew it right away. I was good at it right away. Like I've never had that feeling doing anything else in my life. And I knew that I could do it, and so yeah, quitting, I never thought about it, not ever. But there is times where you're like, man, I'm eating 97-cent TV dinners for every meal because I can't afford to eat, and I just bought $300 spandex pants. So financially, not the best decision. It's hard. It's really hard, and it's really hard for Canadian guys. You have to prove that you have something extra because of the financial commitment a company has to make to you to get you a visa or bring you down, and it's a very, very difficult thing. And it's 120 jobs in the world, and I've had one of them for 10 years. That's, to me, is my biggest accomplishment in wrestling. It's impossible to get one of those jobs, and it's even harder to hold on to one of them. So it's crazy to think about. One time I was crossing over to do a dark match with the WWE. I was going to go to Chicago. I love blues music, and I was crossing over to go into Chicago a day early. I was crossing Saturday night, and the guy stopped me, and he said, nope, you're going to go make money, this, that, and the other, back to Canada. And he told me not to cross again. So I think my life's over. I was just basically banned from the United States. I have to call the WWE now and tell them that I'm not coming, which, I mean, at the time, there's nothing worse that I could do than call them and tell them I'm not able to make it for any reason. So my mom said, nope, tomorrow we'll figure out, we'll get you across, we'll smuggle you across. And so the next day I crossed over. My aunt took my clothes and my wrestling stuff in her car in a Dodge Intrepid with no radio. I drove to Chicago. I did Monday Night Raw in Chicago. Then I drove to Wisconsin by myself in another 2 or 3 hours, did the SmackDown taping there. Then I drove with ODB, actually was moving to Tennessee the next day, and I was booked on the pay-per-view in Nashville. So we drove through the whole night. I got to the building at like noon, no sleep, drove, it's almost 15 and a half hours with no radio, by yourself, all the way to Nashville to do the pay-per-view. But yeah, crossing the border was, it was tough, man. It was a really, really rough time in my life. Every time I'd be pouring sweat and so nervous. But for me, I mean, I don't have another avenue. No, I'm not a world famous UFC fighter. I didn't win a gold medal. I wasn't an ex-football player. I don't have any other cachet. I'm a pro wrestler. That's what I had. So that's my only avenue to get to the WWE, is to call them and harass them and say, hey, I'll come and work for free. And, you know, you get there early and you work out in the ring. And, you know, like some guys were minions for the Undertaker, or ambulance attendees, or security guards. You know, I never did any of that. I always got matches, and always was able to wrestle on the show, or dark matches before the television cameras kind of go live. So I got lucky that way. But I would have done it, you know, in a heartbeat, because that's the system. There is no other way for a guy that's just a pro wrestler and just a guy to get your foot in the door. There is no other way. Your only way is to be a pro wrestler and then show them that you're good enough to be there. So, I mean, some of the stuff is probably illegal. So it's, I don't know. It's, I was dating one of the cage dancing girls. We were very good friends, and we had been seeing each other for a few months, talking to each other kind of every day on the phone. And when I would go down there and do tryouts, or she would come up and visit and stuff like that. So it kind of started as a joke, like, oh, well, maybe you should just, you know, maybe we should get married so you can be down here and, you know, be in front of TNA, because of the problems I had at the border. And I had heard that they were interested in hiring me, but they were worried about me being stopped and the complications that would cause, and the cost of getting me a visa was something that TNA wasn't prepared to do at that point. So they were going to probably replace me with an American or someone that people thought was Canadian, and put me on Team Canada during the World X Cup. So I had my full-time job, working 40, 50 hours a week, making okay money. I had a wrestling school. I owned a house in Cambridge, Ontario, and I said, hey, can we, you know, that thing we talked about, you know, are you still able to do that? Do you think that you would do that for me? She's like, absolutely. You know, like, you know, we're not really married, but you can move down here and live at my house, and, you know, just work on your wrestling career. So the next day I walked with my friend Marco down to the bank, signed my house over to him, closed my wrestling school, quit my job the day after that, put my clothes and my wrestling stuff in my car, drove to Nashville, got married, and I think it was probably about a week and a half after that, I signed my first contract with TNA for 4 shows. We did the World X Cup, and the whole Team Canada thing went really well. I mean, if you think about it, the amount of talent in that group alone it's mind-boggling. You know, Petey Williams, Bobby Roode, Johnny Devine, and Scott D'Amore. So we gave them no choice. They had to hire us. We had such a strong reaction. They ended up hiring all of us full time, and that was in 2004.
And now Eric Young in total control, choking the air, choking the oxygen.
It's a huge gamble, you know. Like I threw away a whole life, you know, and a whole life I had established in Canada. Left my furniture, left my house. I gave my house to my friend because I knew I was confident enough in me. If it didn't happen there, it would happen maybe with the WWE or maybe with them down the road. So I bet on me, and in wrestling you got to bet on yourself first, because if you don't, no one else is gonna. The number one thing, I'm getting choked up talking about it now. Yeah, I think during the World X Cup, we did a ladder match. It was me, it was a 4-way. It was Jerry Lynn, me, there was a guy from Team Mexico and a guy from Team Japan. It was so long ago, but I remember that being really good. And me and Jerry Lynn kind of carrying the action, and were the ones that kind of structured the whole thing and did all the big kind of spots in it.
4 points going to the winning team. You see Eric Young right here as he catches Jerry Lynn and he goes for it. Jerry Lynn positioned on the ladder, going to try and suplex him in. Oh, man! Eric Young, and wait a minute! You gotta be kidding me! Eric Young is getting set up for the slaughter. Here he goes. No, you're not going to tell me. He sure is. He brings it back on him, and again he's got Eric Young in no man's land. Oh, my God! Take down the X-Order, Eric Young. He's got his hand in the air, and Team Canada wins it.
The winner of the match, representing Team Canada, Showtime, Eric Young.
To be honest, and maybe it sounds cocky or whatever, but I've always thought that I was good enough to be there or be in the WWE. when very early on, I didn't think that, but I got to a point, 5 or 6 years in, where I knew that I was just as good or better than anybody that was on TV. And I still think that to this day. You need to have confidence in yourself, and it's not a cocky thing. It's just, I'm just as good or better than anybody that's in wrestling. And I think I've proven in my ability to do all things in wrestling, which makes me versatile, which makes me have longevity. But yeah, it's never a thing. One match I can remember, I know that there was a rumor that they were going to release a lot of the guys from Team Canada, and they were trimming the roster down, and Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, was in charge of booking at that time, and Dusty was a guy that he always treated me well. I had wrestled him, we had done matches and stuff, and was a very nice guy, but I don't think was equipped to single-handedly deal with a whole roster of guys, and creatively struggled with that. That's my honest opinion. And they were getting ready to release me, is what I had heard. We had a tag match. It was me and Bobby Roode against America's Most Wanted, and I knew that it was going to be good. The story leading up to it was good. It was for the titles, and I think we had 26 minutes. And I went up to Dusty and I just said, I appreciate the opportunity you've given me, and I know that you're, on the fence to re-sign me. And it was like my contract was up in like a week, but I'm going to show you tonight in this match why I should be here. And we went out, and the guys allowed me to shine in a way. They knew what was happening, and we allowed to structure the match where it would showcase me in a way. I was a heel at the time, Evil Team Canada, but they structured it in a way where I was highlighted in a lot of the spots.
Action up the ramp as well. Oh, there he goes. AMW.
Going high.
Anyone that's in wrestling that says winning the world title isn't their goal, they're either lying to you or they're insane. I never got into wrestling because I wanted to be on TV. I never got into wrestling because I wanted to be famous or have money. I got into wrestling because I love wrestling, and that's still the same to this day. That other stuff comes with it, but that was never like a driving force for me. It was, I wanted to be good at wrestling, and that to me was like justification, saying, you are good at wrestling. An entire worldwide company, it's seen in 160 countries around the world. It's viewed by 1 million to 2 million people every week, is betting on you, and that's huge.
Champion and challenger come face to face and nose to nose. Head of steam, momentum from Eric Young, and it's met as he is caught by the forearm.
Look at this, he might be going for, oh, nice. Maybe an electric chair coming up here. Could be an electric chair.
Yeah, there it is. Here he comes off the top. Top rope elbow. Gonna try and beat Magnus in his own game.
Eric Young, he's still fighting. He's got a lot of heart. No way. No way.
Pile driver. Pile driver
No
instead
way.
of the back body.
No way.
Eric has hustling. He did it. Eric Young has become the new world heavyweight champion. My God.
You gotta be kidding me. Oh my God.
For me, the number one thing, I'm getting choked up talking about it now. I'm a pretty emotional guy, as you can see, coming through the curtain and having 80 of your peers standing there. And they don't have to be there, a lot of them could have left earlier in the day, but they stayed because of the respect that I've gained. And there's nothing better than that in wrestling. Nothing. Oh man, I didn't expect that. I've been there 10 years, so I know everyone. I know the camera guys, I know the production guys, I know the sound guys. I've been in the ring and probably wrestled, 90% of the roster. And it's weird now. It's like I feel like sometimes I'm the old guy now. Like guys will start and they're 20 years old. Like, I remember in 06 and you did this match, and I don't remember it, but they were fans. And I'm still a fan. I still watch wrestling, but it still is weird to me that now I'm kind of I wouldn't use the word veteran, I guess, but I am. I've been on TV every week for 10 years, and that's how younger people view me as a guy that has experience, and I've seen the card from every single angle. I've been the first match, I've been the match before intermission, I've been X Division champ, tag champ, women's champ, television champ, global champ, world champ. I've done everything, So, and that's very special to me. So having all those people there, they're not made to be there. They're not made to be, hey, stand there and congratulate him when he comes through the curtain. So it's cool. So after the show, Bobby Roode is a guy that I still travel with to this day. I've never been on a TNA show and stayed with anyone else. So he's my road wife. So we always stay together, and we're old men now. So we went to IHOP and we had egg whites, and then we went to the hotel, and they messed up the reservation for the room, and there was only one bed, and Bobby, his lower back was kind of messed up, so Bobby took the bed and I slept on a pull-out couch. So my first night as world heavyweight champion, I slept on a bed like the size of this chair. It's a pretty funny story. For me, being overall respected by my peers is the ultimate, having those guys waiting after when I won the world title, like that to me is the biggest accomplishment. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge part of the culture, and it's part of it is because you'll go crazy. You got to keep things light. It's a lot of hours in a car, it's a lot of hours at a building standing around, and then you wrestle for 10 minutes, and then it's hit reset, and you do it all over again the next day. So you do spend a lot of time with these people, and you get to really know them. There's definitely been years where I've probably spent more time with Bobby Roode than I spent with any human being on earth. I'm married. I've slept in the same room with Bobby Roode probably more than I've slept in the same room with my own wife, and that's telling and very, very interesting. But it's true. It's a hard life. It's very difficult. So joking around and being light with each other is a huge part of wrestling. And you guys have heard stories, and a best of funny story is he's this giant monster of a man and hardcore wrestling and fire and tacks and barbed wire, and he's a tough guy, and if you're asking my opinion, he's one of the best big guys ever, and still is to this day. A guy that's had a long career and has taken his toll physically on him, but he's still an amazing talent. He's deathly afraid of crickets. So being good friends with the Monster Abyss and finding out that he's afraid of crickets, of course we have to throw crickets on him, and we always travel in a minivan. It allows everyone to kind of have their own chair and lots of room for bags, and there's other reasons that I won't say that we rent minivans, but so the Monster Abyss gets in, and I'm in one of the back seats, and he's sitting in the passenger seat in the front. He's big, so we always give him one of the front seats, and I got this handful of crickets in my hand, and I put him on his shoulder. I was like, hey man, what's that on your shoulder? And he turns, and you've never heard such a high-pitched squeal from a man that's over 300 pounds, covered in scars. And I can't do it because my voice doesn't make that noise, but it's the highest pitched squeal, and he's freaking out and knocking him off his chair. And then he beat the crap out of me. I mean, like my arm, I couldn't use my arm for like 2.5 days. He punched the crap out of me. But I mean, we still talk about it to this day. It comes up a lot. With guys from the MMA, these are guys that they pay their dues too. There's independent MMA shows just like there's independent. UFC is not the only place where fights are going on. I hate to break it to you, but guys are getting their heads punched in for $100. All over North America, all over the world. It's very similar. They're obviously great athletes, and if they have some sort of a marquee in MMA, it's only good for us. I read a quote in Ken Shamrock's book. One of the most iconic MMA guys ever, and he says in his book, he said, he's done submission fighting and sambo and all this stuff, and he said he's never done anything as difficult as pro wrestling. And for him to put over pro wrestling like that, it shows you how difficult wrestling is. So I mean, it's good for both. What Bobby Lashley is doing right now is unheard of. He's got a full-time wrestling schedule, and he trains MMA, and he's pounding people, like he's smashing people. He's a freak. I mean, look at him. He's no body fat, a wrestling base. His striking is, obviously really improving. And as sure as I'm sitting here telling to you, Bobby Lashley is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my life. One of the most respectful guys. I think right now in professional wrestling, this is the best he's ever been. And I think a lot of that has to do with confidence and being put into a position to excel. In wrestling, this is always it's a business first, you know, and it comes down to ratings and views and buys. That's the bottom line. So, you know, if someone coming in can increase those, and the company thinks that, they're going to do it. I don't worry about stuff like that. I concentrate on what I can control, and that's what I say and how my matches go and how my segments are run, and that's all I can control. So that's all I've ever concentrated on, and that's all I ever concentrate on. With one word, I was entertained by him in whatever way that may be. You know, like maybe, you know, right now maybe you hate me. You know, maybe you're one of the people on Twitter that wishes I had cancer every day. You know, maybe you're someone that can't wait for me to be the superhero again, or maybe you thought me being the beer drinking champion was the best thing you'd ever seen. Like I want to be, you know, maybe you had a bad day and you watch wrestling and I took your mind off something bad for 5 minutes. You know, something like that it's important to me. And for me, being overall respected by my peers is the ultimate. You know, having those guys waiting after when I won the world title, like that to me is the biggest accomplishment for me. Like winning the belt is, you know, I would lie to you if I said it wasn't a big deal to me. It's a massive deal to me. You know, it's when you're a little kid. You know, hockey players don't grow up thinking, oh, you know, I really hope I win the Memorial Cup. If they dream about winning the Stanley Cup, winning the Memorial Cup is awesome, but winning the Stanley Cup is the ultimate goal. So, yeah, I mean, I just, you know, respect especially from diehard wrestling fans, you know, people that watch it and know what's going on and know the difficulties of it. Having respect from those people is important to me too. So it's, you know, just being remembered as somebody that was good at it and deserved what he got kind of thing. That's important too.